committee this evening. It's 5:30, Thursday, July 15th. We'll start with roll call. Mr. Butita.
Here.
Ms. Crosby, I don't see just yet. Mr. Arena. See his icon. He might still be connecting, Mr. Arena. Mr. Hoffman.
Present.
Mr. Hoffman is here. Mr. Arena is here. Ms. Red.
Present.
Mr. Salgado.
Present.
And I'm also here. We do have a quorum. Thank you very much for being here this evening. Mr. Thompson, have anyone signed up for public comment this evening?
Not this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I shall omit that portion. That moves us right along to item D. We're going to pull item D for tonight. I do want to talk just a little bit about it. I do support, and we haven't had a discussion on this publicly, but I do support what we're doing. We're waiving the fees. The problem is, as written, this resolution doesn't identify a funding source. So with the ARP money coming through and other things, we felt it best to pull it for this evening and wait until a better funding source or a funding source can be identified. Does anybody else want to talk about that? We won't take action on it for tonight, but is there anybody want to speak to that? I see Mr. Arena. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So is there anything preventing us from using the ARP funds for it? I mean, is that not an option or the obvious option?
If I understand it right, that's the intent, but I'll let Mr. Thompson speak to that.
It's certainly an option, but we haven't really identified, how to fit it into the plan as of yet. We need to have more discussions on this, and also we would like to have just some discussions with the public health department because they have a fairly sizable fund balance. And so I think there may be an opportunity to utilize some of the public health fund balance to offset the loss of revenues for waiving these fees. So it could be a combination of ARP funding and public health fund balance, but we haven't ironed out those details quite yet. And we certainly could use ARP funding and that's probably going to be part of the solution, but
Approximately how much money are we talking about?
it's around 600,000.
Oh, okay.
So it's a fairly sizable budget for this, to do this. So we want to make sure we have the right funding source identified.
All right. Well, this is waiving fees that the health department collects. If they have a surplus in their accounts, I actually, it seems to make sense to me. Then I agree with you that we should utilize that money. Thank you.
Makes sense to me too.
And I strongly agree with you, Mr. Arena and Mr. Thompson. I think if they have a surplus, I know they've been awarded several grants and they've gotten extra money through for different reasons. If they have it within their budget to go without that 600K for this year, absolutely. I would very, very much support that. Is there any other discussion on this, even though, again, we're not taking any action on item D? Mr. Salgado, you got something? Go ahead.
No, I said we'll just wait until the next time around.
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Thompson, didn't we do this last year with host fees?
I'd have to go back and check to make sure. I think that that the county board did approve some waiver of fees and you did use host fees. But I would not recommend using host fees if we do this.
No, I strongly agree. My only point for that statement was we have helped out once before, and to further push the point that I think maybe the health department should be able to absorb these costs. So that being said, we'll move on to item E, resolution adopting procedures for remote meeting attendance pursuant to the Illinois Open Meetings Act. And I so move. May I have a second? Mr. Arena seconds. The item is before us. Ms. Vaughn, are you prepared to talk to this, or it's pretty straightforward? It's just affecting county board meetings. If I recall, I read it last Saturday night. If I recall, it's just county board meetings. It is not committee meetings. Is that accurate?
Thank you, Chairman. It's all public meetings, so maybe I need to clarify that in the resolution. Or we can add an exception, additional exception in the therefore clause,
I think it covers all meetings. and-
right?
And I think the way the resolution is written is okay because it refers to a public meeting. So I think it covers all meetings.
Sure, and I see it's got 4 stipulations for possibly allowing somebody to join via Zoom. Mr. Rena, did you have your hand up?
Yes. Sorry, I'm struggling managing Zoom and looking at the document itself. I don't understand in the 4 stipulations, item 3, it's unclear to me. I can't get it up on my screen at the same time. It just, I don't understand what the third one means. Can you, is it?
It's the business of the public body. So maybe Lafa could clarify that.
Chairman, so yes, so that's taken directly from the statute. My interpretation of that is if you had a meeting, some other meeting or press conference, things of that nature that relates to your duties as a county board member. But that language is directly from the statute.
But you said, when we talked about this on the floor, you said we can work on that language, right? If we want to clarify it some?
Correct. Under subsection C of the same act, we may further limit the extent to which attendance by other means is allowed. So if you want to add additional restrictions, you may. That's up to the committee and then the board.
I think at a minimum, we should make that one crystal clear so that all of us, anyone who reads it it's obvious what it means exactly. Because I don't know, it just was confusing to me when I read it. And I don't know if we want to also, the 4th one seemed to be very broad to me. I don't know if anyone else agrees with me on that, but I'd be interested to hear what everyone else thinks.
I do agree with you. I want to make sure that it can't be just a willy-nilly, hey, I had other business to take care of, sorry I couldn't be there. I'd like to put something that's more definitive. But I see Miss Red's got her hand up. Miss Red?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to be out and I'll be missing some meetings because I'm going to have medical issues. So how are we going to put that in there so that it's clear? I won't be able to do things in person for a while.
I think that's covered under this section, that it's an exception that you're able to either call in or Zoom in virtually under those exceptions.
I tried to do that last night and it was terrible.
Right.
I could not hear what the people in the chamber were saying. How do we fix it?
There were some technology issues regarding last night's meeting. I apologize for that, and IT is working on trying to correct that.
Okay. Thank you.
And I think this is the reason why we need to get back to in person. Before the pandemic began, there were exclusions. If you had something going on, you didn't have to, there's nothing says you have to make every committee meeting, every caucus, this was put in place to allow a majority of us to meet virtually. Moving forward, if you have a extenuating circumstance and just cannot make it, maybe it's just like in 2019, you can't make it. Is there any other discussions on this resolution? I agree with Mr. Arena. I don't know of a on the floor amendment. I'm trying to run through my mind an on the floor amendment that we can make to clear it up better.
Well,
go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. So now that I'm reading it again, I guess I see number 3, the business of the public body in context. Now I understand that.
Yep.
A family, maybe it's what it needs here is that a requirement that the person who is Zooming in has to actually explain what it is that their reason for doing it. So here's my question, I guess, to the committee. If somebody's on vacation, should we let them Zoom into a committee meeting? or a meeting.
I myself am opposed to that. Again, I'm going back to 2019, the way we did business prior to the pandemic.
All right, so all I'm saying is, if we adopt this, this is going to exist for, long after we're all on the board, and people may interpret it to their advantage down the line. We should somehow make them state exactly what the circumstance is that's causing them to not be there, so that someone who's on vacation just says, yeah, I had a family emergency. Maybe we have to require them to explain. I don't know, or maybe that's just unnecessary. I just don't want it to be abused is all.
I share your concern. One thing I worry about with having to explain is there's HIPAA laws where I don't have to tell you what's going on medically.
Right. All right.
The other thing I like to point out is members may allow, and it says may and not shall.
Mm-hmm.
So the committee chairs, the county board chair has that final say of saying, no, that's not going to be allowed. You'll just have to miss the meeting.
Should we put that in there then?
That's how it is written. It's written with may and not shall.
But it doesn't say who's making the determination, does it? Oh, the majority of those members may allow. So it's by, oh, does this require a vote of the board, Ms. Vaughn?
Yes, it does. Based on my review of it, it does.
Okay, I see. All right. Then I think that being the case, I'd be fine with it as it is.
Mr. Butita.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm in favor of meeting in person. I'm in favor of this resolution as it's written. And, but I'm also in favor, and I've mentioned this in the past, of us continuing to have, I don't know if Zoom is the correct word, but to telecast or provide our committee meetings to the public. So obviously we have the technology to do it. We've been doing it. So, but I'm in favor of being in person, but I think we should still at least provide the public access to our committee meetings via this technology or some technology.
Sure, and I agree. Back when Mr. Jury was the chairman of the operations committee, he had been talking with us about using Facebook Live or some other means to at least broadcast it, allow more people to maybe not participate, but that transparency to see what's going on. I think it's a terrific thing. I think one thing we need to check into, Mr. Thompson, is what is that cost? If we did broadcast all of our meetings, what does that add to IT? Is there technology that each committee chairman can have and he or she is responsible for deploying that technology, and that way we don't have the extra costs? There's things that we need to look into. Especially, I really like the committee meetings. If there's something on public safety and judiciary, I can tune in to see what's going on instead of running downtown. I agree with your point. Is there any other discussion on this? Seeing none, because we're on Zoom, we'll go to a roll call vote. Mr. Butita.
I'll vote yes.
I don't see Miss Crosby yet. Mr. Arena.
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman.
Yes.
Ms. Red.
I'm gonna vote no.
Okay. Mr. Salgado.
I'm a yes.
I am also a yes. The resolution passes. Thank you very much. We're moving on to item F. Resolution authorizing the chairman of the Winnebago County Board to execute a consulting services agreement for River Bluff Nursing Home, and I so move. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Salgado. The item is now before us. Mr. Thompson, or I do see Pat's here from the nursing home. Who would like to speak to this?
I'll start off, and then Pat McDermott can also assist. This is a renewal of an existing contract with Generations. Generations is a consultant, a management consultant that specializes in health centers and nursing homes. We have a long-standing relationship with Generations. This is a renewal. It's a one-year renewal. Our current contract was a 3-year contract. I'm recommending a 1-year renewal. The terms of the agreement, the existing contract was a 3% of residential income. That was what their fees were. The renewed contract that we're recommending is for 1 year at 2.5% of residential income, or $25,000, whichever is, it's a minimum of $25,000 or 2.5% of residential income. And I've met with Pat and discussed, the importance or the need for this management consulting with River Bluff, and she's made a convincing argument that we should continue this contract at least for another year, and then we can reassess how things are working at River Bluff in a year from now, rather than renewing for 3 years. Pat, do you want to add anything?
I just feel strongly that it's important for us to have them. Most county facilities or freestanding facilities have disappeared over the years, because you can't be in this industry, you can't be that island, you can't be alone. There's too many constant changes. We're too highly regulated. You don't have the staffing within one building to vet out all the changes in all the different areas, especially with your accounts receivable, with all the changes in the past 5 years, say, with public aid, Medicare, all the privatization of it. It's a constant. It's sometimes hard to put words in it, because it's what the trouble we don't get in, because we're able to get them on board early and help us with problems, saves us a lot of money in the end, and it saves our star rating, it saves our reputation. And you need those, I know the company well, and they've got probably 40 experts that just work with their facilities and all the different areas in your MDS and your AR, in your skilled nursing, and your administration, life safety, all these different areas. They have people that take the regulations, rip them apart. They're part of the Illinois Healthcare Council, which we're not. A lot of their information will come from them. They invent the wheel, and then they share the wheel with us and give us education on it, and then we carry it out in our facility. It's not, you've got to have, it's a very specific business. Some days I don't talk to them. The agreement is for each of the consultants to come out here physically twice a month, but 24/7 contact. Some days I don't talk to them. A day like today, I've had some issues. I remembered some old regulations that I wanted to discuss with somebody that could help us get some more CNAs in here. I can pick up the phone up and call and talk to people that I really can trust, that I can say, here's my interpretation of the regulation on a state and federal level. What do you think? And we can discuss it. And because of that, we were able to move forward in hiring 3 nurses aides. It's just, there's a lots and lots of regulations, and you need that support to make a successful building. And I think we're already, or we have been over the last, again, COVID kind of threw us a curve, but now we're sitting down once a week and we're looking at every single accounts receivable person, and they're sitting down with us every other week. And we're discussing every case and how can we make this case work, and how do we stop the bleeding? When do we stop the bleeding legally? Everything else going forward. Just the amount of money we can save with that, and some of the money we've been collecting is really at their direction, but they have a group of people, that's all they do. So they've worked on training my people. We're getting pretty good at it, but we're going to need this constant. They have the contacts, they know who to call for this and how we can make all these various different insurance plans, all this privatization, make it work for us, and there's no way we could do that on our own. Standalone facilities can't do it on their own. You don't have the time, you don't have the experts. We're experts in our own fields to a certain degree, but we don't have those full-time people. This is what they do, and they receive all the excessive training in it. They also provide training to us, so maybe once a month we have a Zoom meeting, especially during COVID. And because of the distance, that's a good thing for us anyway, where they can give us continuing education units that we need to have, which we'd be paying for otherwise. And, all the map of where we need to go to stay in compliance, to get better, to do all the things that make a facility run. So I feel very confident in being able to pick the phone up and talk to various different people. They're helping us get our CMI up. That's your case mix index. It's your MDS. It's your tidbit on every single thing about every single resident in the building. They're taking a look at everyone we submit, and they're saying, hey, that person had an IV in the hospital 3 days before they came to you. You can legally change your ARD date. It's called, I know these are all, but they say, hey, you can make more money if you use this date instead of that date. And that's legal to do. But it's having those people there that are looking over our shoulders and saying, hey, you didn't do this quite right. Let's show you what you did wrong. And then we carry it out and fix it. And then they come back, they see what we did, and we kind of start over again. So it gives me I know it's not cheap, but I can't say the money we saved on fines, on the damage that can be done when you don't have those experts, helping you out with the facility.
Does anyone know for last year, it says 3% of income or 25,000. Did we pay the 3% or did we pay the 25,000 last year?
It was good.
No, that was my same question, Mr. McDonald.
They just changed it. It was the 3% last year. They came down. I believe it was originally 5%. Then it went down to 3%. And the lowest that, I asked them, give us your lowest amount that is worth it for you. I understand it's a very expensive management company to run. What's your lowest? And they came down to 2.5.
But did we pay 25,000 or did we pay the 3%? Did we hit the minimum of 25,000 or do we have to pay over that because of the 3%? Does anybody know that question?
I don't know that, Keith. I can check before this comes in front of the board.
I've got Joe Hoffman on my phone, so I'm holding my phone up. His computer is updating, he says. So I've got Joe here on my phone.
I'll get the answer for you before Thursday night's board meeting, Keith.
Ms. Johns, do you have any idea on that number?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. No, I don't know. I think we were hitting 30 or 40,000 at 3%. I believe it was like that. So now at 2.5, we probably are closer to the 25,000, but I can't say for sure. I can probably go into Munis and possibly look it up.
From the invoices that I remember, they were in the low 30s, but that's just from memory, looking at the invoices recently.
I like this payment method. It ties results to their efforts. I think that's a good thing to do. I just want to make sure that their results exceeded the 25,000 a year.
A month. It's a month, Keith.
Thank you. I apologize. Any other discussion on this? Let's go with Mr. Butita and then Mr. Arena.
Thank you. Well, I certainly can see the value of having consultants that have an expertise in your area or multiple areas that you got to be concerned with. So I certainly can see the value in this kind of setup and how they can help you manage your business. This may precede your term here, Pat, at River Bluff, but I mean, you mentioned that one of the things that they may help you manage is the accounts receivable, which since my time on the board seems to be a major issue there. And well, you know, obviously, if they're helping us manage that, how did we get in this situation with our receivables? And I know this might precede your term where a lot of these receivables are.
Yeah, it really is before my time.
Yeah.
A lot of the monies we're looking at are from, 13, 14, 15. So that I can't really answer.
How would you characterize them working with you now as far as receivables? What benefit are we realizing because of this?
We're number one, we stopped the bleeding. That's been one of my goals since I've been here. Get us to the point that our books are closing timely, where they can take a look at our books and we can all sit down and look at various cases and stop the bleeding. Don't go 4, 5, 6, 10 months without getting paid on somebody. Now, we've been able to go back and do a lot of old billing and stuff, but it needs to get done timely. So, for example, this Wednesday, they're going to come out every other Wednesday, and then my staff and I meet every Wednesday. We pull out some problem cases and we sit down and we look at them from all points of view, and then, come to decisions. What's the best way to move forward with them?
Mm-hmm.
So I have a stack of 5 or 6 right now, that we have plans on how we're going to move forward and how we're going to stop the bleeding. We're not going to get these people that owe us $90,000 because they wouldn't cooperate, or they wouldn't give the money, or they wouldn't, it's not fair. It's the residents' income. It's a fair, it's fair for us I can't tell my staff that I'll pay you in 5 months. We have to pay our staff to take care of these residents, and we can't let things get like they were, and we pulled ourselves up out of it, but we need to continue it. And as things constantly, again, everything's privatized now. It's not you apply for Medicaid for somebody and you bill them and they, do a couple complex things and then you get paid for them. That world's gone. The government wanted to save money, so they privatized it. So that but guess what? The insurance companies, they have to make money. So the government's saving money and the insurance companies need to make money. Where are they going to get the money out of? They're going to make it so complex for us to bill and get paid for our services that you need to know how to jump through the hoops. And it's different for every single insurance company out there. Same with Medicare. A lot of the traditional Medicare people say, hey, I saw an ad on TV that I can get some dental work and, save $100 a month. I'm going to do that. People don't realize that they are giving up their skilled benefits. So when they have their hip replaced and they need some serious therapy, they're not going to get it. So it's identifying that stuff quickly. We in helping to guide the resident and helping to guide us to make sure we're not going to provide therapy for somebody that we're not going to be able to get paid for. We can't just give the services away. They're expensive.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're doing a weekly meeting and bi-weekly with the consultant, because is you have to manage it. Let it slide, and it sounds like that's what you're doing. So I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's taken a while to get to the point where we were caught up enough to do that, but now we're doing it, and now we're starting to make some huge progress.
Great. Thank you.
It is good to hear. We'll go to Mr. Arena and then Mr. Salgado after that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have several questions. First, how long in total has our relationship been with this company? If you said that, I missed it.
3 years, I believe.
So we've only been doing business with them 3 years? Because Ms. John said that their contract was 5%, then 3%. Now it's 2.5%. So in the last contract, it was 3 years. So do we know with certainty how long we've been engaged with this company?
Excuse me, it wasn't, it was never 3 years. I think it was two. It was 2018. It was something Carla set up. in
Okay.
2018. I know that for a fact.
Okay, my second question is, looking at Exhibit A on the compensation, it talks about $25,000 per month at a minimum, plus ancillary fees minus contractual allowances. What is an example of an ancillary fee, and what is an example of a contractual allowance?
The only ancillary fee I know of is mileage.
Okay, where is that? Are those, I will look through the contract. I can't find any definition of what those are in the contract. Ms. Vaughn, are you aware of that in there, and am I just missing it?
No, I didn't see it in the contract.
Okay, so it makes this seem very open-ended to me on, they say, you owe me $25,000 plus some fee that we're considering ancillary. That's concerning to me. And I don't, and the contractual allowance also, is that not undefined?
Question for me?
I guess, yeah, for Ms. Vaughn.
Yeah, no, that definition isn't in the contract either.
Okay, so this is their contract, not ours, right?
I'm not sure who drafted it originally. I just know this was updated since the last one, but I wasn't involved in drafting of this contract.
Okay, so.
I can answer that. Dave
Okay.
Kerlinkus was involved with editing the original Generations contract. He was very active with that.
Okay. And then Ms. Vaughn, paragraph 15 about attorney's fees says that if there's a dispute, the prevailing party recovers attorney's fees from the other party. Is that clause to our disadvantage, or does it put us at a disadvantage having that in there in some way?
So if we ended up in litigation and we decided to handle it in-house and we lost, then yes, because then we would have to pay the other party attorney's fees. If we decided to retain outside counsel in the matter and we won, then they'll have to pay us. So I don't know if it ends up in litigation, who would handle it. Sorry. It may be in-house. So yeah, it would be a disadvantage to us because we would have to pay them attorney's fees.
So if we got into a dispute with them over something they did and felt we had to take it to court, would this paragraph be like an impediment to us doing that in some way?
No, we could take them to court. That doesn't prevent us from doing that, but it depends on who wins the lawsuit. So if they prevail, we would have to pay their attorney's fees. If we prevail, they would have to pay ours. But since we're in-house, assuming we use the state's attorney's office, we wouldn't have attorney's fees.
Right. So do you approve of that paragraph being in this contract?
Typically, I recommend that each party is responsible for their own attorney's fees. But it depends on what we negotiated with the company, which I'm not sure.
But starting from scratch, if you were negotiating this contract, this is not a paragraph that you would prefer be in there.
Correct. I typically recommend that each party is responsible for their own because we handle a lot of matters internally.
So I have concerns about the contract and how it's written. At a minimum, maybe the attorney's fees paragraph, is open to debate, but there has to be some definition of what ancillary fees are and this contractual allowances, especially the ancillary fees are an additional cost to us I can't understand how it's not defined someplace.
You know,
So-
I swore to God, I read that.
Well,
Just saying.
I am unwilling to vote yes until that can be defined for me. Is this time sensitive?
Their contract is already expired. I think it expired in June. So we're just going on, we're going on the existing contract until we have a new one in place. And so if the committee wants, we could lay this over until our next meeting, until we have a chance to maybe to have LAFA look at that language that you referred to, Paul, and then we can provide more definition for ancillary fees and contractual allowance. So I don't think it's overly time sensitive because we're just kind of going, we're kind of on an extension right now of the existing one until we have a new contract.
Okay, well, I know Mr. Salgado wants to weigh in on it, so I'd like to hear his perspective on the whole thing, but I personally would like those things to be cleared up before I vote on this matter. So I'll guess we'll listen to Mr. Salgado and then decide.
I
Thank
sense the eminent motion coming, and I appreciate you, Mr. Arena, waiting to hear the rest of it. I think you have a terrific point that we need to be informed of what exactly we're liable for and fully understand what's going on. Mr. Salgado, what's your question, sir? What do you?
Yeah, one of the questions have been answered about the cost for this. I think it's pretty understandable what the cost is. The second piece of it is why didn't we go out for bid and try to figure out if there are other consultants out there before recommending extension. Because once again, there are questions with the cost relating to the services that are being provided. It could be that it's a sole source only. I don't have that information, but it'd be kind of interesting to see if there are any other consulting firms out there that provide the same services. And I'm sure, I'm assuming Ann Johns and Pat actually looked at the cost relating to that. It could have been that it's significantly lower. So just a question on that. And I also think that if we can get those answers, those questions answered before we actually take a vote would be wise from my standpoint. So.
Excuse me, this is Ann. I can answer the question about bidding it. We did bid this originally in 2018. And we had 2 vendors apply. And while it was being evaluated, the RFP was being evaluated, the responses, Carla hired the one firm, not Generations, but the other firm. I don't recall the name. And they were the ones that were there for a few months. But then Carla fired them and went back to the other vendor that applied, which was Generations, and hired them. So we did go out for a national RFP, or I think it was an RFP or else RFQ, request for qualifications, at the time. And neither one was local. They were both, I think Chicago area. And so we have tried them both in-house. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, just a follow-up comment. I understand that it was done in 2018. We could do a 1-year extension, but I think we really need to look into, since our primary one that we had, I think I want to say it was 60,000 or 70, somewhere around that ballpark. And we didn't get the services we were intending to get. And that's why, we essentially dropped them and went with someone else. But I really think from our perspective, Mr. Butita brought up a good point about accounts receivable and some other services that are being provided. I know we hired someone to help in-house, so I really think we need to kind of look at that. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have consultants, but because in the past we hired someone where we weren't getting the services provided versus the fee that was being collected, I honestly would rather feel more secure going out there to see if we can go out for bid again to determine whether there are other firms out there that could provide, or maybe this is the best. And obviously we can move forward with the same situation. But I really think we need to look at strategically the services that they're providing and what we're getting in return versus how much we pay out. That's just my thought. I know that, you know, when Carla was here, we had that firm, and Ms. Gora was very vocal about, you know, she was disappointed on that consulting firm that we had and that they were just taking our money. So with that, that's just my comment. No, I don't need a response to that, but I just wanted to throw it out there. So thank you, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Delgado. Is there a succession plan for River Bluff that once we hire these people, are we learning from them? Are we learning to take this over ourselves so that way in the future we won't have to pay this?
I don't see that any standalone building could ever do it themselves. That's my personal opinion, but I don't see it happening. You might be able to reduce. We've kind of cut back the services and cut back the services. I think what we've kept is necessary, and I can't imagine how many people you'd have to hire to do it in-house.
Do you think this is a driving factor for Stevenson County to make the decision that they made?
Very possibly. It's a rough business if you don't have support. That's why so many county facilities are gone. They were successful. Times have changed. You know, that's my opinion. I've been in this business for many, many, many years, and I could never see a freestanding building making it on their own without an awful lot of staff and paying an awful lot of money for highly qualified people to drive this train and reinvent these wheels every single time.
Okay. Is there any other discussion, Mr. Arena?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I believe I found the ancillary fees. Paragraph 9 says reimbursement for cost. In addition to, and not as part of its fee, consultant shall be entitled to reimbursement for all of consultant's reasonable costs and expenses incurred in the performance of its duties hereunder. And that language to me is wide open. So, I mean, what are reasonable costs and expenses? That's where I think there needs to be clarity in this contract. So
I agree with you, Mr. Arena. Do you have a motion to go along with that statement?
I move that we lay this over and give Ms. Vaughn an opportunity to look over this contract and possibly make some recommendations on tightening up the language.
Second by Dorsey.
So we got a motion to lay over by Mr. Arena, seconded by Mrs. Red. Any discussion on layover? I got Joe Hoffman on my phone, so I can't look at the name so well. But Mr. Butita, a motion to lay over.
Yes.
Mr. Arena,
Yes.
Mr. Salgado,
Yes.
Ms. Red,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman. He said yes, for the record. Hopefully this is legal, Ms. Vaughn. And I am also a yes. So the motion has laid over. Ms. Vaughn, do you have clear direction on what we're looking for?
I do, Chairman.
Excellent.
Mr. McDonald, Angie Goro, may I speak?
Yes, ma'am, please.
First of all, the consulting firm that our past chairman hired, it was SAC, S-A-K, and they charged us for 3 months. Our bill was over $250,000, of which we got nothing out of. What this new generation has been doing with all the legal that goes along with a nursing facility, we would have to have an in-house attorney to go over all the changes, all the regulations, and explain it. As I recall, generations did not go back 15 years into our accounts. All they were working on was the current ones, getting those updated, back about 3 years. They were not hired to go back 15 years on our accounts. So you have to take that into consideration as you look at this, because of the continual changes, not only from state but federal, on all facilities. With Freeport was going underwater, I would have to say at least five years ago, if not more, when several of us visited them because we had thought about outsourcing our kitchen. And they were in trouble back then because of the administrator they had. Plus, it's a small county. The small counties aren't going to be able to survive. And we have to keep that in mind, that we're the bigger county and they are surrounding us. Belvedere ran into a problem too. So we have to look at, are we going to have to hire an outside attorney to just do River Bluff, have them constantly working with River Bluff? Or do we need an organization that is very well qualified in the nursing field and can go forward with it and act a lot less than what the other company was charging us and did nothing? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coral. And I haven't heard anybody say anything negative about Generations. We just, if I'm interpreting the rest of the committee properly, we want to make sure we're controlling our costs and we don't give them a blank check to bill us for anything willy-nilly.
I understand that, but also think if we have to have an attorney, an in-house attorney, what the cost of that's going to be too.
Sure. I appreciate that comment, Ms. Coral. Thank you. So we voted on the layover. Again, I've got Joe on my phone, so I'm not looking at my agenda. I think the next is other matters, isn't it?
Correct.
Does anyone have any other matters to come before this committee this evening? Seeing none, how about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Arena, seconded by Mr. Butita. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Joe said aye as well, just so you guys know.
Yeah, I heard him in the background.
Any opposed? Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.